Must-see TV for you. Out on Netflix today. It's called Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. And Dan Wetzel was executive producer of this docuseries, Yahoo Sports national columnist who joins us now. How'd you get involved in this project, Dan?
Well, I covered Aaron Hernandez's, story from all the way back into Florida, but obviously once he was suspect of the murder of Odin Lloyd, and during the long process of multiple trials and all the different things, Kevin Armstrong, a journalist of the New York Daily News at the time, and I talked about doing a book, and maybe we just saw this as a massive story that went beyond the daily headlines. There was such depth to the different angles to it that this could be told in a different way, and we partnered up with company called Blackfin out of New York City, and Gino McDermott, who handled the directing and some of the executive producing, and kind of got to work on it while in between the first and second trial. And at that point, obviously, we had no idea where it was headed. An acquittal in the second trial, suicide in the prison, all the different things. So it's been a long process to tell this story, but we were there pretty much from every day, every step of the way. So I think we were able to provide a depth to the story that you wouldn't get if you're just kind of coming in after it became this big sensation. How did
he hide his double life from Belichick and his teammates and Robert Kraft?
He had very different worlds if you look at it. His friends he was hanging out with at times, they weren't Patriots. He didn't hang out a lot with the Patriots. That's in there. He wasn't connecting with the guys on the team, which was a side of concern. So he would be out with a friend of his, mainly this guy Alexander Bradley, who was a drug and gun dealer out of Connecticut, and they just had different worlds. So nobody knew what he was doing. He had a million different kind of hidden lives to himself. He wrestled with his sexuality and tried to hide that throughout high school and college. If you listen to we have a lot of the jailhouse phone calls in it, and if you listen throughout the three parts of the series, you'll hear him talking in incredibly different ways to all different types of people. He can be as kind and as sweet to his daughter or his cousin or something like that. He can be totally different with somebody else. And so you just see how this guy was really a chameleon, but what he was doing at night, people didn't know. So you literally had in 2012, you had him at the very least involved in a double homicide in Boston, a shooting where they drive-by shooting, and then he ends up stashing the car in his cousin's garage. He's either the trigger man or he's in the car with Alexander Bradley. About a few weeks later, he signs a $40 million extension with the Patriots and then plays an entire season in the NFL as essentially an accused double murderer. So you just have never seen anything like this in football, where a guy has got that kind of a secret life going on. It's truly football player by day at times and gangster at night. But there were so many elements to his story that were hidden from the people who knew him the best, whether it was his wife or his attorney, or the way everyone who knew him best was shocked when he committed suicide. He had a way of compartmentalizing and hiding things from people.
How much cooperation did you get from the Patriots?
Not much. We have a lot of NFL footage in there. We have some former Patriots and things like that. But, you weren't going to have Bill Belichick sit down for an extensive interview on this, which is understandable.
Did Aaron Hernandez almost get away with this?
No. He probably could have gotten away with the first one. His real problem was he got into a rivalry with his friend Alexander Bradley, who blamed him or testified at one point, but at the very least blamed him for shooting him in the face in a separate incident down in Florida. There's a lot to this thing. It's hard to put it in, but
he was in college at that time, wasn't he, Dan?
He was this was after college.
Okay.
He and Bradley became friends after college.
Okay.
But Bradley says Hernandez shot him in the eye. Thought Bradley was dead. Bradley survives. Bradley basically says, I'm going to kill you. It's revenge. He refuses to cooperate with the police. Aaron loads up, buys an armored car. He starts hanging out with a couple guys as kind of bodyguards. He's got a lot of weapons. At that point, it was a matter of time what was going to happen. He ended up killing Odin Lloyd and getting caught for that. Could he have gotten away extensively for the double homicide being involved in that? It's hard to say. He still had the car kind of sitting in a garage hidden in Connecticut, so maybe. But I think Aaron was, he only played 3 years in the NFL. He was only 23 when he was arrested. To think he would have gotten away with it for much longer. He lived a life that was doomed to pretty much end up in some failure at some point, or some kind of arrest, or the murder of himself. He was completely on the edge. He lived a completely outside the bounds of normal society life while he was playing professional football.
We're talking to Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports national columnist and executive producer of the docuseries Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez, out today on Netflix. What did you learn about his time in prison?
Well, again, that too is complicated. I mean, when he first went in, people, he gets put on suicide watch right away when he goes into the jail, and they usually do that with anybody facing that kind of charges or pressure of a life sentence. The jail officials, before he's convicted, say he literally moves in and it's almost a relief, and he just there's no crying, there's no banging on the door saying I don't belong here, I need this. Nothing. All he ever did, his only request was more protein in his lunch and stuff like that. He just basically was fine with it. There's jailhouse calls where he's talking to his mom about how much he likes his cell, how cozy it is, and things. But later on, through it, I think the pressure of being so young and facing life without parole got to him, and I think it was the key reason why he ended up committing suicide. Although we'll never really know. So after 4 years in, he ends up committing suicide, and in the state, in the maximum security. At that point, he'd been convicted and was in a much rougher prison, and I think that just kind of wore him down and got it. So he ends up killing himself at 27. But very interesting dynamics there on both an ability to adapt immediately, but also struggle with the fights and the discipline and just the sheer difficulty of facing what would have been, 50, 60 more years.
Yeah, he was a wannabe gangster, it felt like. He's hiding his sexuality. I don't know if CTE plays a role in this. Is there a part of this docuseries where the audience is going to come away with, a scene that sort of surprises you or blows you away?
I think there's a number of them. Particularly the phone calls that really show him in unguarded moments. We took a very journalistically sound approach to this. We're not just chasing the craziest rumor we can throw up there to try to shock people. Like, this is as we reached out to hundreds of people and worked this story for years. So it's not going to be something where we're just throwing anything in there to shock people, but I think there's a number of them. I think you see the depth. Nobody in this docuseries fits into a box very well, including Aaron Hernandez. It's real life. There's good parts and bad parts to almost everyone involved. So he just why has always been the story. I think it would be unfair to just make a determination on that. I think it was a perfect cocktail of different things: abuse as a child, his dad passing away. I think the decision to go to Florida wasn't great for him. I think CTE played a role probably, or could have, an interest in being a gangster, all the different things. And we're not trying to excuse Aaron's behavior because he made these decisions. And these decisions, as we point out and spend a lot of time with the victims, ruined lives, ended lives, adversely affected a lot of lives that had nothing to do with him, people he didn't know. But we do try to explain just the myriad circumstances around this to try to figure out why we've had this, because this is just a story we've never seen. Talk about NFL murders, O.J. Simpson and things like that, and obviously it's an incredible story in its own right, obviously. But OJ was retired. OJ was caught up in domestic violence. Like, these are things we've seen before. They aren't that uncommon in the world. Sadly, we've never seen this. You just don't see a guy driving around shooting people, being involved in, as many as 7 shootings and three homicides, all by 23 while being a professional athlete, highly functioning. I mean, guy caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. He's able to conform with the Patriots. He has this beautiful mansion, a loving fiance, the baby. He does everything at times to show how I'm making it. And then on the other side, he's doing something completely opposite. And that's just sort of the way he lived his life.
Dan, thank you. Good stuff. It's out today on Netflix. It's called Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. Great to catch up with you. Thank you, Dan.
Always good, Dan. Take care.
All right.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.